right, everyone. Well, welcome. If you are looking for the Fulbright 101 session, you are in the right place. Happy to see you all here this afternoon. This is going to be our last virtual session for the semester. So glad to have you all here to get some important updates on how to get started with the U.S. Fulbright Student Program. Just by way of introduction, my name is Heidi Bretz. I use she, her pronouns, and I am one of the National Fellowships Coordinators here at USC. And I focus specifically on international awards such as Fulbright, as well as other awards that will help you do graduate study, language learning, research, or other really cool things abroad. So happy to talk about Fulbright in this session. If you have questions on other awards or want to explore what else you can do with fellowships, happy to meet with any of you one-on-one, and I'll tell you how at the end of our presentation today. So just to give you an idea of what we'll do with our time together, we are going to be scheduled till about 7:15. So I'll plan to talk for most of that time, and we'll have some kind of Q&As in the chat, so be ready to engage there. So we'll start off with an icebreaker, a quick definition of national fellowships if you're not familiar with kind of national fellowships and in general. We'll do an overview of the Fulbright program. We'll talk about what USC's process looks like supporting Fulbright applicants. And I have student voices on here, but we'll just have a conversation about Fulbright. And then what's next? That's going to be the next steps you have to getting involved with the Fulbright process. So by way of an icebreaker, I'm going to have you all hop in the chat and say, if you could hop on a plane tomorrow, where would you go and why? Just a couple sentences, a couple phrases about where you would go and why if I gave you a ticket to anywhere in the world. Ooh. I think I would probably go right now to Quito, Ecuador. I've been wanting to go there for a little while and think it would be really cool to go and spend some time there, eating really good food and seeing really cool things. Oh, perfect. So Cynthia wants to go to El Salvador to continue and deepen a research project with rural women in oral history. Cynthia, it sounds like you're in the right place with Fulbright. Go to Japan to experience different culture and food. Awesome. Hawaii, yes, not international, so not Fulbright, but we can get you to Hawaii. Spain or Portugal, culture and architecture is beautiful. Yes. Yeah, so all great places. And with the exception of Hawaii, which is a domestic location, Fulbright does travel to those locations. And China is another one that folks are interested in. So lots of really good opportunities. In Hong Kong right now, thank you for joining us at like, I don't even know what time it is, 6 a.m. Wow. Cambodia, very cool. Well, thank you for everyone who is coming to us from near and far, and hopefully we can get your Fulbright questions answered. All right, so to kind of back it up a little bit, I don't know how many of you have heard of national fellowships, but it's kind of a blanket term for the kinds of awards that our team, our advising team, which is 3 people strong, helps support. So we're going to break it down kind of into 2 terms. So we have national fellowships. What is national? So when we say national, we mean things that are nationally competitive. These are not things that are tied to USC. This is not USC's money. It's not my money. It's not our office's money, but it's money from other entities, usually governments, foundations, even specific universities that will help you to do certain things. Students from all over the US and sometimes even all over the world can apply for these opportunities. So again, these are open nationally. When we think about competitiveness, and I know with Fulbright, people tend to think, oh, it's a really competitive fellowship. The answer is yes and no, and it depends, which is the answer to most things in fellowships is it depends. And competitiveness is all about finding what award is going to be your best fit. As with any opportunity, jobs, applying to get into schools, applying for scholarships, there are always going to be more people interested than there are spots available. So that's what we mean when we talk about competitiveness, is that there are a ton of people interested, there are only a select number of spots. But the way that you can make your application the most competitive is to really think about the fit of the fellowship. So why do you need to go to this country? What is it about the location that you're really excited about? Is there someone you're working with there that's really a good fit for what you want to do, or a program that's going to help you develop a specific skill set? Those types of things can really help you to strengthen your argument, because Fulbright really wants to know, what do you want to do in this country? Why this specific location? And why should Fulbright pay for it? So that's really the argument you're trying to build. So when you're looking at Fulbright, it's really important to spend a good bit of time on figuring out which award you want to apply for, and then building your argument around that. With Fulbright, you do only get to apply for one award per cycle, but there are, again, other fellowships that are not Fulbright that you can apply for if you want to apply for multiple awards. And again, there are over 300 offered. We're up to over 350, I think, in our database. So lots of opportunities for you to expand your horizons, to do certain things. So, fellowship. That's the other half of our national fellowships. But a fellowship is kind of different from a scholarship or a grant in that it's an award tied to an opportunity in most cases. So it's usually a source of funding that leads to an experience. So for Fulbright, for example, it leads to either a graduate degree program, a year of research, a year of English teaching, or a year of creative arts projects abroad. So it's tied to an experience. Some fellowships are a little bit different. Some of them will give you money for tuition. Most of them will be tied to specific experiences, summer programs, language programs, you name it. But it tends to be in coordination there with award and opportunity. And National Fellowships and Scholar Programs is a team that is here to help you navigate these kinds of opportunities, decide which ones are a good fit for you, and help you to prepare your application. So now that we've talked about fellowships in general, what is Fulbright? So when our team talks about Fulbright, we're talking about the Fulbright U.S. Student Program. Fulbright is a big umbrella, and it covers a lot of different really cool things, but the U.S. Student Program is the one we're talking about today, and that is open to folks who have graduated with their bachelor's degree or who are going to graduate with their bachelor's degree, all the way through people who do not yet have a conferred PhD. So you're basically eligible for the student program forever or until you get a PhD. So that's great news. So that's what we're talking about, is the program which supports folks between the bachelor and the PhD steps to do study, research, creative arts, or English teaching abroad. So the goal of the program, at its heart, Fulbright is really a citizen diplomacy program, an ambassadorship program, and their mission is to foster mutual understanding across nations, advance knowledge across communities, and improve lives around the world. So that's something that, as you're really thinking about Fulbright and which award is right for you, you really want to keep in mind that you are going to be representing your slice of the U.S. abroad, and there are as many U.S. cultures as there are U.S. citizens. So really thinking about what are some of the things that you bring to the program, what are some of the ways that you really want to engage deeply with your community abroad. Just in terms of history and administration, Fulbright has been in existence for many, many years. It was created in 1946, right after World War II. It's sponsored by U.S. Department of State, Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs. It's administered by IIE and administered overseas by binational commissions and U.S. embassies. So that's another piece that kind of speaks to that mission of building mutual understanding, is that Fulbright is not just U.S. funding. Fulbright is a joint effort between the U.S. and these countries that are hosting Fulbrighters. That comes up most kind of, I don't know, clearly in the application process, because the first part of the application review is done by U.S. folks, so the U.S. National Screening Committee, and then if you're recommended as a semifinalist, then your application gets passed to the host country, and a committee of the host country members review you and make decisions on your application. So it is something that is a partnership between the U.S. and these other countries. And I will just take a moment because I know we're going to probably get this question, but I know there's been a lot of questions about funding and things as of late. With Fulbright, every year, Fulbright funding is dependent on appropriations from Congress and the US Department of State. So that isn't something that's typically new. There has been a little bit of effect from recent executive orders on current Fulbrighters, but that seems to be lifting, and Fulbrighters are now receiving their payments as following a funding freeze. They had put in place a funding freeze for a few days, and now folks are receiving their payments once again. We've been told by Fulbright that they don't anticipate that there will be additional impacts at this point on for the program going forward. They do intend to have the program be the wonderful support system it is and has been for over 75 years now. So just wanted to kind of mention that in case you were coming into the conversation with a little bit of trepidation. And if you weren't, hopefully I didn't cause you any. But just know that we are recruiting for Fulbright, and the program for 2026-27 is up and running. Did I hear a question? All right, and feel free to throw questions in the chat as we go through. I'll try to keep an eye on those as well. All right, and so again, Fulbright is really hoping to be a representation of the US abroad. It's I heard a saying recently, it's making nations into people. So really giving the opportunity for folks to have one-on-one personal interactions with Americans. So really being a representative in your host community. And that's a representation of the vast and wide variety of backgrounds that reflect US society and societies abroad. So they are looking for folks who represent every aspect of the US experience and really want you to think about what are some of the ways that you want to share your American experience, your American identity with folks in your host country. So what does this program look like? So overall, there are about 2,100, 2,200 awards that are given out each year to about 140 countries worldwide. And those awards kind of break down into two broad categories. So the first broad category is Study and Research Award. You can think of this as like the classic Fulbright. So this is where you can either design an independent research project, so doing research on a subject you're interested in another country, or you can apply to do a graduate degree program. Most graduate degree programs internationally are 1 year, so Fulbright will most often cover a full graduate degree, or doing a creative arts project abroad. If you are thinking about creative arts, we can get into some nuance with that, let me know. But basically, what kind of proposal you put together depends more on if you want to research or study around your art, or if you have a plan to practice your art abroad. But that's all covered under the Study Research Award. So of those awards, there are 900 available. They usually last between 6 to 12 months, and they go to about 140 countries. The other side of Fulbright is the English teaching assistantship. These are a little bit more structured, and they are basically placements that you apply to help teach English and US culture in the classroom. You would be the native speaker voice, helping folks to practice their English, learn more about US and American culture, and really get to know someone whose first language is English. You don't necessarily have to be dedicated to a teaching career after your Fulbright ETA, but you should of course be able to explain why you want to do teaching to get where you're going. Why is it helping you on your path forward? There are slightly more English teaching awards available, about 1,250. Those last an academic year, about 8 to 10 months, and go to about 75 different countries. The reason for the slightly smaller countries is because a lot of countries already have quite a significant English-speaking population. So those are the two main types of awards that you can apply for. And then again, this note, you can only apply for one Fulbright Award per cycle. So you can apply for either a study research or an English teaching assistantship, and you can only apply in one location. So again, that's why fit is so important, because you only get one. So it's really important that you dial in into what your goals are, where is going to be the best place for you, and what skills and outlooks and goals you're bringing to this experience as well. So, what are the benefits? Basically, Fulbright is intended to give you about a graduate student standard of living in the country in which you are studying or teaching or researching. So they have more information available on the program pages per country as to what that stipend kind of looks like. But in general, the award covers your round trip airfare to and from the country, a monthly stipend, which again is intended to give you that standard of living, accident and sickness benefits. For those who are applying for an English teaching assistantship, they do provide a TESOL fundamentals course, so teaching English to speakers of other languages. And so I think it's like 60 hours. A full TESOL certificate is 120 hours. So it's about half of a certificate to help you get those English teaching skills up to par and have you get some experience before you're in country. There are other possible benefits, and this is kind of another quirk of Fulbright with the bi-national nature of it, is that each country is gonna be a little different. So that's why it's so often the answer to questions are it depends, is because it really does depend on which country you're going to. So some countries may offer support for dependents like spouses, parents, children. Some may have an additional research allowance. Some may cover tuition, some may not for academic programs. Some may include language lessons or enhancement activities. And if you do have a disability or accommodation needs, the Fulbright's really good at working with folks on those. And so that's all kind of before and in country. But Fulbright does not end really once you come back to the US. And one of the most valuable parts of Fulbright is actually the alumni network. So the alumni network is tens of thousands of people strong. It's been going since 1946. And once you're a Fulbrighter, you're always a Fulbrighter. So you get access not only to the Fulbright network of alumni, but also to the State Department alumni website. And they've been doing some really cool professional development events. They've even done a couple of like travel international seminars that State Department alums can apply for. So really cool stuff. If you are thinking of working for the US government, this is not a requirement of Fulbright, but it is a perk. So if you are thinking of working for the US government, you actually have a year of what they call non-competitive eligibility, which is basically a special hiring status that makes it a lot easier for you to get federal jobs. So if that's something you're interested in, Fulbright can be a way to make that process a little easier. You also get a lifetime email address and access to the Fulbright Association, which again is made up of Fulbrighters of all types, not just the U.S. student program, but scholars, which are faculty and professionals, foreign student recipients who have come from other countries to study in the U.S., and more. So you get access to that whole community of Fulbrighters. All right. So what does this application look like? I keep talking about it. So with the application, they're going to ask for a few different things. So first off, basic personal information, program information. And so that's where you are going to let them know a little bit about you and what program or award you're going to apply for. For the award, you will write a couple of different short answer questions. So the biggest of that is the statement of grant purpose. And so the statement of grant purpose is the meat of your application. It's really, or the tofu if you're a vegetarian. So thinking about what you want to do in that country, who you're going to work with, how it connects to your goals, why it's important, why now is a good time for you to do this thing. So really talking about what you're going to do in the country. If you are doing a research or study grant, you're going to have up to 6,000 characters, not words, characters. So don't worry, you don't have to write a whole book. It's about a page and a half, 2 pages there. So 6,000 characters about what you want to do in the country. English teaching assistantship is a bit shorter. That is 3,000 characters max. And that is where you talk about your interest in teaching, your skills that have prepared you for teaching, including things like tutoring or being a classroom assistant, being a mentor, like all those types of things, and what kinds of ideas you have for engagement in the classroom. So that's the bulk of your application. And then there are also 3 short answer questions that really kind of delve deeper into some of the elements Fulbright really wants to hear more about. So one is the flexibility and adaptability. So they really want to know, how prepared are you to live and work in another country on your own for a year? So really thinking about, what experiences have you had that have made you flexible and adaptable, and what kind of qualities are you bringing to the Fulbright program that are going to make you successful? Community engagement. So Fulbright, again, is all about building mutual understanding, citizen ambassadorship, all of that kind of stuff. So they really want to see how you're going to engage with your host community outside of what you're doing with your grant. So talk about what you're doing with your grant, your statement of grant purpose, but community engagement is like, I don't know, are you going to get involved in a knitting group? Do you dance? Are you interested in joining a hiking group? Like, what are you going to do to get to know your community and actually become like a member of the place that you're living? So that'll be 2,000 characters max. And then impact of Fulbright Awards. So that's where they really want you to think about, one, how this relates to your future goals. So how is Fulbright the next best step on your way to wherever you're going? So helping them to understand what Fulbright's role is in your personal path. And then also they're looking for kind of those larger impacts. So if they're investing in you as a Fulbrighter, how are you going to pay that investment forward? What is like, what are the larger impacts of what you're hoping to do? And each of these, again, they have these all available on the Fulbright website. I'll show you where to find the information, and they have some guiding questions, things to help you get thinking, but this is just to kind of give you a flavor of what the application will be. Our team is here to help you draft these things, to proofread and talk through them with you and brainstorm. So don't worry if writing is not your forte. That's what our team is here for, is to help you to really figure out how to get your voice and your authentic self onto paper. So you have those kind of things that you're doing. So those are the big pieces of writing that you're doing, are the statement of grant purpose and the short answer questions. In addition to that, you may need a foreign language evaluation. Not all countries require it, but some of them do. So it'll tell you on the program page whether or not a language, there's a language requirement, and foreign language evaluation, getting in touch with one of our professors at USC who will be able to evaluate you using a form that Fulbright provides on your language abilities. And then 3 references. So that is going to be 3 people who know you best in terms of what you want to do through Fulbright. So who can really speak best to your ability to successfully do what you're hoping to do. So if you're doing research, you should probably have someone who has supervised your research on there. If you're doing a study program, you probably want someone who speaks to your academics. If you're doing teaching, you want someone who has observed you interacting with the age group you want to interact with. So really thinking about the 3 people that can really show a 360-degree view of who you are as an applicant. Usually it's some combination of academic and professional references, and we can talk with you and brainstorm with you again about who are the best people to talk to those different aspects of your Fulbright application. And Fulbright doesn't really put a lot of stock into titles, so it's much more about like what someone can say about you, as opposed to like, oh, they're the head of this department, so it looks really flashy that they wrote a reference for me. But if they don't know you, not really helpful. So we'll be there to help you think through those things. Transcripts. Fulbright does not have a GPA requirement. And so basically what they're asking for with transcripts is to make sure that you are doing well in the field in which you want to do more work. So if you are like me and you were a international studies major and you took a statistics class and did not do well in it in your freshman year, like that is not going to be something that's going to tank your application. They want to make sure that if you are like a Japanese major, that you're getting good grades in your Japanese language and studies classes. That makes a lot of sense. If you're not, that might be a flag. But really, they're just looking to see kind of steady progress or an upward trajectory in your grades. If you have questions, let me know about that. But again, there's not a GPA requirement. They're much more interested in what you're hoping to do and how you're hoping to do it than your academic record necessarily. as long as it's not completely out of line. Other potential application components, if you're doing a research or study grant, you will want to seek a letter of affiliation, which is basically a letter from your contact in country, be it a university or research center, art, like art museum, whoever you're going to be in contact with in the country, that basically says, we've talked with them, we're really excited about the research. Here's how we're going to support by helping get access to the library, give them a desk and a microscope to use, those types of things. And we can talk more in depth once you've kind of determined that study research is the way you want to go about what the affiliation looks like. And we have a whole file system of resources for the Fulbright application, which includes like examples of how to ask for letters of affiliation, like literally email templates, and also examples of past letters. So there are just tons of examples that you can access through our office that will help you get a good idea of what you're looking for. And then if you're doing an arts degree, they do ask for supplementary materials, including a portfolio. All right. So I'm going to pause there and see if there are any questions about the like basic application structure of Fulbright. All right.
Hi, I have oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just curious about what is the like length of time that the application generally takes? Like, how
Hmm.
long do you usually see that like prolonging?
Yeah, that's a great question. I thought it was going to be next slide, so I hit the button. But basically, with the Fulbright application, the best thing you can do is give yourself time, because Fulbright not only takes a little bit of research to figure out where you're going, what you're doing, why you're doing it, but also like the writing process itself, the revision process. It takes a lot of time to really reflect on what you want to do, to put it down on paper, have other people read it, give comments, you have incorporate the comments, you revise, and you'll do that like 3 or 4 times. So we recommend getting started before you leave for the summer break. A lot of the work will happen over the summer. We'll have weekly office hours, just kind of open for you to come and ask questions, to get your materials reviewed. You can also meet with myself mostly, or any of the members of our team over the summer. We're working, so we're happy to look at your information there, to brainstorm with you. You can schedule appointments. And we also pair you up with faculty mentors. We have a group of faculty who volunteered to be one-on-one mentors for our Fulbright applicants, so there'll be yet another layer of support. So usually folks will work on their applications starting in like April, so right around now, through August. And why August? Because we have a campus deadline, which I'm actually going to skip ahead in my PowerPoint. We'll come back to this. Yes. So the August 13th campus deadline. So that is basically the best thing that we offer in terms of support for Fulbright applicants. And what that is by August 13th, you will turn in a dress rehearsal, polished draft of your application that you've been working on, including your essays, your short answer questions, your references, and give us like a good solid draft. And what we do is we take that application that is in the system on August 13th, and we put together a bespoke faculty committee for you. So we actually go out and we find someone who has expertise in your discipline, in the location you're going to with Fulbright, and we put together a committee for you, and you actually get to sit down with that committee who's read your application and receive 30 to 45 minutes of direct and personalized feedback. So that's probably the best thing we do. So that's kind of the date to aim towards. So August 13th is when we collect the information. August through September is when we have those meetings. And then between the end of your, like when you have your campus meeting until October 7th, which is the national Fulbright deadline, you'll have a chance to incorporate and revise your application to have all that good feedback in there. So that's kind of the process that we're doing. So it is a little bit of a longer process, but again, like this is something, And we've talked with folks who have received Fulbrights, who haven't received Fulbrights, and excuse me, one of the things they talk about most is the value of the process itself for really helping you to prepare for things just in life. Because if you're thinking about doing graduate school, a lot of these same questions will pop up. It's really good to be able to like practice writing persuasively and writing a statement that's trying to convince someone to give you money, especially if you're thinking of applying for jobs later or applying for grants. Like these are all things that are going to be helpful. And so we're here to help you the whole way. But the earlier you start, the more time you have and the more ability you have to revise, to reflect, and it just makes the whole process a little less stressful. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Yes. Oh, good question. Does Fulbright partner with specific universities, or do we have to find our own university? And I'll give you the standard Fulbright answer. It depends. So there are some programs that, like Fulbright has partner awards, which are for specific universities. So if you want to go to, say, IE University in Madrid, there is a Fulbright IE University award. But there are also countries that will have open study slash research. And so if you don't find like the university you want to go to as a separate award, instead of it being like in that university bucket, you would go into the country bucket, which would be the open study award for that specific country. So it's a little bit of both. Yeah, you're going to find that answer a lot with Fulbright. Again, these are basically from Fulbright is an umbrella with like 140 different programs underneath it. Probably more than that because each country has multiple programs. But I'll show you where you can find that information so you can start doing your research. All right, so yes, so there is a national Fulbright process, which is what we kind of covered in the blue slides. This is our USC process to give you, again, additional layers of support. But the October 7th deadline is like the deadline that shall not be passed at 5 o'clock on October 7th, Eastern Standard Time. The application portal shuts off. So that's really the final deadline. But we have a lot of additional kind of check-in points to help you stay on track with your application. Question. Oh, another good question. Would we have to apply for a university's Fulbright Award before applying and be accepted at that school? Yes. So Fulbright is only a funding award. They don't have anything to do with admissions. So you do also have to apply to the university you want to go to. So if you want to go to IE University, you'll apply for Fulbright by October 7th. I don't even think IE University's application is open at that point. So you would apply whenever that application would open. And typically, if you are named a semifinalist, which happens in late January of 2026 for you all, then they would ask at that point, hey, if you have it, like give us your admission letter as soon as you can. And so that would be kind of your letter of affiliation would be the admission to the university. So you would apply to the university usually after or at the same time you're applying to Fulbright. Good questions, y'all. All right, so I'm going to pop back into what makes a good Fulbright applicant while people are formulating more questions. And then I will show you the website so that you can start looking at that yourself, and I'll show you where to open the application. They have a handy dandy award search tool if you're not quite sure what you want to do yet. And of course, we're always happy to have those kind of conversations with you. But what makes a good Fulbright applicant overall? So probably first and foremost is the quality and feasibility of your proposal. So really thinking about how realistic what you want to do is, especially for research folks. So you don't want to go and say, oh, I'm going to go to like the Czech Republic and I'm going to do research for 8 months and I'm going to find the cure for cancer. Probably not. That'd be great, but probably not. So really thinking about what can you realistically accomplish within the Fulbright period. So really making sure that you're realistic. The quality. So really thinking about like what is it about your application that is really important or that is like answering questions that are important, that sort of thing. So quality and feasibility of your proposal. Again, strong academics, but no GPA requirement in your area of focus, especially. And probably most importantly, clear articulation of why you need to do this specific thing, be it this degree, this research project, this creative art, this teaching assistantship in this specific place. And so that can look like, oh, like I am a heritage speaker of Hungarian and I want to go to do English teaching in Hungary so I can work on my language skills and also build up my teaching skills because I want to be a college professor someday. That all makes a lot of sense. So you really just want it to you want to make it make sense to who is reading the application. So really thinking about why you want to do this thing in this specific place. And of course, commitment to serving as a cultural ambassador, because again, Fulbright is at its heart a citizen ambassadorship program. That's really what they want to do, is they want to have people who might not meet a lot of Americans, meet Americans and build relationships and therefore think favorably of Americans in the future. You may need language proficiency, but it depends where you're going. But I like to direct folks to what I call the fellowship fit funnel, patent pending. So really what you want to do is build the argument of why you, what is it about you, your goals, your talents, your skills, your experiences that have made you want to do this thing or made you really resonate with what Fulbright is trying to do in the world. Why this particular program or project? If you want to go to a specific university, what is it about that program that's different? Why could you not do a similar thing in the US? Or what is it that's special about what you want to do? Why is the location important? So again, that can be tied to like the uniqueness of like the project or the program that you're doing, but also like if you want to practice a language, probably a good idea to go and live somewhere where the language is spoken for a while. Or if you're really into conservation, looking at different approaches to sustainability in other countries, like thinking about why the location is important. Why is now a good time to do this thing? For some of you, you may be just graduating, and so it's a really good time to kind of have this experience to set you up for a master's program or a job or a career path. Or if you've been out of school for a few years, then maybe saying, hey, I now have a really good idea of what I want to do, and this is the next step that I need to take in order to get to where I want to go. So really think about why the timing is important. And then finally, and this is a piece that sometimes can get forgotten, is why Fulbright? So thinking back to Fulbright's mission to build this mutual understanding, to make these global impacts. So really thinking about where your interest resonates with Fulbright and emphasizing that in your application. You don't want to go in and be like, oh, I'm the best ambassador ever, and that's all I want to do, unless it's true, of course. But really thinking about where those natural connection points are. Because I mean, Fulbright is looking for folks who are going to help it do what it wants to do. So it's good to address that in your application. So let's see. Okay, we did that. All right, so I am going to stop sharing for a moment and pull up the Fulbright website so that you can all see that. Feel free again to keep throwing questions in the chat or to unmute yourself. All right. Okay, so this is the Fulbright website. So again, it's the Fulbright US Student Program. If you see anything that's not student, you've probably ended up in the wrong spot. It's easy to do. There are a lot of confusing, a lot of Fulbrights, so it can get confusing. So us.fulbrightonline.org is the place where you go. So with this, the website is very, very informative. There's also a ton of information, which can be very overwhelming. So where I recommend you start is by looking at applicants and then application components. So this is kind of once you have an idea, oh, do I want to do a study grant, research grant, or do I want to do an English teaching? That's probably the first thing to kind of figure out is which way you're leaning. And then you go to the application component section. We'll pick study research because it's first. And so this will explain a little bit in more detail those application components. So this is the structure of your application. This is what all applications of this type are going to look like. Excuse me. So these are really the things that go into your application. So again, program information, biographical information, statement of grant purpose. So this will, again, give you a little bit more guidance as to what questions to consider, what things to include in your statement of grant purpose. So they will give you some information on here. And then just a note for, I tend to get confused with this, tends to trip folks up. They do have two sets of questions in the study research portion. The first set of questions is for independent study, so non-degree seeking study or independent research projects. So if you're not doing that, if you're doing a graduate degree, don't answer these questions. You don't have to answer these questions. But they'll give you, again, those guiding questions, what's important or significant about the project, what contribution will it make towards cross-cultural understanding, how will it further your academic or professional development, those types of things. So that'll help you kind of think through those different elements. And then graduate degree programs are down here. And so they'll say, why do you want to pursue the proposed program? Why the particular institution? Why do you want to gain a better understanding of your host country? Things like that. So that'll help you to kind of think through some of the elements of your proposal. And then the affiliation letter, which again, if you're doing a research proposal, you will need to have study. You typically will have one, but not always. Short answers, again, ways to kind of help you think through those different aspects of the Fulbright and how you'll adapt to it, how you'll engage with your community, and then the impact of your Fulbright award. So lots of really good information there, but that's the structure of the application. The content of the application is going to be determined by what country you want to go to and what you want to do. So that's where you'll go to the countries tab. And if you know where you want to go, then you can click on that specific country. It's separated by region. I know someone said Cambodia, so I'm going to pull Cambodia up. So we'll see what Cambodia offers. So they offer English Teaching Assistant Awards, and again, the Open Study Research Award, which is basically support for some combination of study or research in that country at basically any institution. So let's take a look at that. So it will tell you here what the accepted degree levels are. So that's the degree you should have by the time of program start. So if you are someone who is a junior right now and you're planning to apply to be abroad in 2026, fall of 2026, you will have your bachelor's by the time you go. So you'd be considered a bachelor's candidate. You just have to have that degree by the time of program start. There's also another date they like to reference, which is at the time of application, which is in October of this year. So if something's due at time of application, October 2025, at time of program start, fall 2026 or later. It's a 10-month grant. They will tell you kind of who they're looking for. So they're looking for recent graduates, graduate or PhD students, specifically to do research. The profile, so they'll tell you kind of who is the most successful candidate, what are they looking for, highly independent, all fields of study, master's and PhD preferred, but graduating seniors will be considered. They'll tell you about what life is like for Fulbrighters in that country, so they'll give you a little sense of what it would be like to live in Cambodia. Eligibility, usually they talk about like, oh, not having extensive experience in a country. If you've done an undergraduate study abroad, that does not count towards extensive experience. If you were born in Cambodia and lived there until you were 10 and then you immigrated to the US, that doesn't count as extensive experience. Basically, they're making sure like you're not currently or have recently like lived for a long period in that country, because why are you looking for support if you're already there, sort of thing. Foreign language evaluation form. So another note about the way Fulbright uses terminology. So required, if something is required, it means that your application will not be evaluated without that component. So if it's required that you have a beginning level of a language, if you don't have that beginning level, they're not going to review your application. Recommended means that that's what most folks have to be competitive, and that's going to make you like stand out as a Fulbright applicant. So this one, it's not a requirement, but if you don't have the language skills, you should plan to do some studying before you get to Cambodia. And for all projects, all awards, you should have the level of language that you need to successfully do what you want to do. So if you're going to go and interview people in Cambodia in their own language, you should probably know how to speak it. So, you kind of think about that. By grant start. And so this Fulbright proposal type will tell you what you can do with that grant. So here you can only do either non-degree seeking studies, so taking a couple classes, or independent research, or some combination of those. They do not support you getting a full graduate degree in Cambodia. So it's really important to look at that so you don't get caught like with your heart on Cambodia and then you find out that you can't actually get your graduate degree there. So make sure you're paying attention to that. Affiliation, again, whether it's required or not, what it looks like, whether or not fees or tuition are covered in benefits. Most places that offer the graduate degrees will cover tuition and fees, but not always. So it's good to take a look at that. Award benefits. So again, they kind of give you a general overview, and then they tell you, I don't know why whatever they're pulling from is not working in terms of the US dollar, but this is what your stipend amount will be in the local currency. And then some one-time allowances, and then they give you an estimated cost of living so you can get an idea of about what standard of living you would have in that country. Dependent financial support is not available. That doesn't mean you can't bring dependents. It means that they're not going to give you an additional stipend for that. Housing arrangements, this one, they do assist you with housing. That's actually pretty rare in Fulbright. A lot of times you will be asked to find your own housing with resources provided by Fulbright, but that's something that is most Fulbrighters navigate fairly easily, especially if you get in touch with past Fulbrighters to that location. They can usually give you good tips on where to live. Special consideration, malaria prevention for this one. So that will tell you more information. It'll give you some links and then some contacts in that country. So that's kind of the anatomy of a country program page. And again, sometimes they'll have the open study research. English teaching assistant will look a little bit different than that. Sometimes they will ask you to state your preferences for where you would want to be posted or what age range. Not always, but it's always important to read this pretty closely because they'll tell you what the actual grant experience is going to be like. Some of them, you'll be very independent. You'll be basically the primary teacher with some minimal oversight. Other places you may be assisting a licensed teacher in the classroom, leading conversation groups, study groups, and some places you're actually doing education abroad advising. So make sure that you're reading the English teaching assistant award description so you have an idea of what the program and the post itself really will look like. Yeah, so this one, teaching 14 to 16 hours. You could work with your students to establish an English club, sport, cultural class. You could do work with an NGO, so lots of different things that you could do, but they'll give you some more descriptions. They'll give you what kinds of placements, age ranges, things like that. Placement locations. So it's really important to read these program pages very thoroughly. And if you have any questions, I'm always happy to take a look at it with you. You can reference the embassy's page, or there's actually a really robust community of Fulbright alums, and you're completely able to look up alumni in the grantee directory and maybe send them a message on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'd love to hear more about your experience in Cambodia. And 9 times out of 10, they'll love to talk to you. So that's if you kind of know where you're going. If you're not quite sure what you want, like where you want to go yet, but you know kind of what you want to do, you can use the award search tool. So it's under applicants, then award search. It gives you these weird pop-ups that are annoying. But this can be helpful if you, for instance, want to do English teaching. You're a little bit flexible on where you want to go, but you want to go somewhere that you don't have a language requirement. That's where you can narrow it down by English teaching assistant, not required, and you want to make sure they accept people with a bachelor's. So these are all the programs that would fit those criteria. So this can help you kind of explore some new options, think of places maybe you hadn't considered before, like Azerbaijan or Bahrain. I don't know, maybe you want to go to one of those places. And that'll help you kind of narrow it down a little bit. I will say one note, there are these numbers you'll see. Those are how many awards they anticipate offering for the year. And one note about numbers with Fulbright. So remember we talked about competitiveness and how it really depends on fit. Usually I don't advise people look at the numbers, and especially don't look at them first. Because really overall with Fulbright, you have about a 1 in 4, 1 in 5 chance of being awarded. So about 20%, 20 to 25%-ish overall. And that kind of holds true no matter how many awards they offer or how many country or how many like applicants there are, because it usually works out to, so for Croatia, like, yeah, there may only be one award, but maybe there's a fewer number of applicants. But I wouldn't base your application and where you decide to apply on numbers. Fulbright is not a numbers game, it is a fit game. So if you're making a decision between two completely equal opportunities, yeah, go ahead and look at the numbers and maybe see if there's a big difference in acceptance rates. Usually there's not, but the most important thing is finding the one that's going to be the best fit for you. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, so that can be a really helpful tool to use to narrow things down. And you can further narrow it down by world region, what age group you want to teach. So if you know you want to do little kids or you don't want to do little kids, you know all of that. So those are the main places that you're going to find information is in the application component section, the award search, and in the country or program page. And I know we'd asked about like specific partner programs for different universities. So that's where, so for example, if you look at, oh, Norway's probably a bad example. Norway's a bad example, going back. Let's try Estonia. Estonia is a good example. So you'll see, no, it's not. They changed it. Third tries a charm. Let's try Finland. There we go. Okay. So Finland, so we were talking about like the Open Study Research Award. Basically, that is for any university that is in that country that meets whatever criteria the country has set out. So your application bucket would be the country. If you're interested in one of these specific programs, then your bucket is going to be LUT University. And so you'll be in that bucket with other people who want to go to that university. If you have the opportunity to apply to like one of these universities is the one you want to go to, always apply for the partner award. It's a better match, kind of just generally speaking, and also the pools do tend to be a little bit smaller. Again, not to make decisions based solely on numbers, but sometimes it's good to know. But this will tell you what universities have these partner awards. If you're interested in Finland, but not one of those universities, then you could apply potentially for the Open Study Research Award. And finally, how to open your application. So I don't know why it's kind of hidden on the website. You would think it'd be front and center, but if you are ready to open your application, which I encourage you to do as early as you are fairly confident you're going to apply for Fulbright, just to get a sense of the application system, the pieces in there, and we'll actually be able to see you pop up in our portal once we gain access to our portal later this month. So we'll actually be able to reach out to you, be like, hey, we saw you open an application in the portal, come in and talk to us. You may or may not like that, but we like that. So hopefully you will too. But once you're ready, you can go to applicants and then the Fulbright online application. And so that's where you will create your application for a Fulbright US student program. They will ask you to choose an award type in a country. You can do that just to kind of get started, and then you can always go back and change it. All right. Yeah, so back to the PowerPoint. Any questions on that? Any questions I haven't answered for you? Right. So, again, in the chat, just throw in there what kind of Fulbright you're thinking about. Study, research, creative arts, or English teaching as assistant, where you might want to go, and why you might be interested in that, just in a couple of words. You can throw that in the chat. And while you're doing that, so what kind of Fulbright you're most interested in, where and why you might want to do that. Let's okay. Oh, okay. Good question. Hold on. Chat. Whoop. All right. Third planning teach abroad this upcoming school year in Spain. You can still apply for 2026-27. Yes, so I guess that's something important to clarify. This year's application cycle, so the October 7th, 2025 deadline is for a fall 2026 program start. So you'd be abroad in the 26-27 academic year. With fellowships, you're always thinking like a year ahead, maybe longer. But you can, so say you wanted to teach in Spain through, say, the NowCap program, which is the Spanish government's version of like an English teaching assistantship. That shouldn't be a problem to apply for that, or to apply for Fulbright while you're doing that, or having done that. It shouldn't have an impact on your eligibility, and it probably will only help you because then you'll have a little bit of teaching experience. And our team does work, I mean, we have someone coming in from Hong Kong, so we're very flexible in terms of where you are in the world when you apply. We've had people apply from, last year someone was in Japan teaching English on the JET program and was applying for a Fulbright master's program in the UK, and we worked with her from Columbia, South Carolina. So, it like, we're very flexible. And as long as USC is your most recent institution, so say you're graduating, maybe you want to take a few years and go into the workforce, go into the Peace Corps, do something else, and then in a few years you decide Fulbright's right for you, you can come back to us as long as you're not like in another grad school program or in law school or something like that. We had someone who applied through us who had graduated in 2016 who last year received a Fulbright award. So they worked with us the whole time. So we are happy to work with alums as long as we are your most recent institution of record. Yeah. All right. So, just some reminders on how to craft a strong application. Find your fit is the most important thing because again, Fulbright, the stronger you can make that argument as to why you, why your program, why your location, why now, and why Fulbright, the better your odds are. Starting early because you give yourself the gift of time to really reflect, to revise. Writing is a process, and that process takes a lot of time. So the more time you can give yourself, the better off you will be. Getting to know your faculty. So I know we will help with connecting you with faculty mentors that we've worked with, but getting to know your faculty because you're going to need those letters of recommendation. If you are hoping to do a research project, you may be tapping into your faculty's professional networks to find an affiliate. And it's also just good to get to know your faculty. They're actually pretty cool people, and they're not as scary as they seem. So getting to know them if you don't already, because again, these are your future colleagues potentially. It's really important to think about Fulbright in terms of depth over breadth. They really want to see how you've engaged like deeply with something as opposed to like doing a lot of little things. Although if you do a lot of little things, like that's your thing, that's also fine. But they're really looking for you to show the depth of your interest in and understanding of a topic. Be open to feedback. That's really important, especially since this is so much a writing and revision process. Like that is going to include people looking at those essays, some of which are kind of personal, thinking about like, oh, what are my career goals? What is my flexibility, adaptability? Those can be topics and essays that bring up kind of personal subjects. So being open to feedback and being open to hearing suggestions from our team, from faculty, from other folks that you have read your essay saying, hey, I'm not really getting the point you're making here, or I could use more information about X, really being open to that while still knowing that you are the final say in your application. It's your application. You are the author. You get to determine what makes it in, what doesn't make it in. But being open to feedback can really help you to strengthen your application and to make sure that, again, the things that you want to say are coming through loud and clear for your readers. Use your resources, including our office. So please reach out to us. Also, the Writing Center, your personal faculty and advisor networks can also be helpful. So just make sure that you're really reaching out to folks. It takes a village to write a Fulbright, really. So how to get started. So first off, of course, exploring the Fulbright website, playing around with that award search tool, making an appointment with a fellowship advisor. As I said, I would tell you how to make an appointment. So if you are an undergrad, currently you can find us on Navigate under involvement and engagement and then national fellowships. I, again, am the primary person who does Fulbright, but my colleagues Val in the paisley dress and Jen in the stripes, we are all familiar with Fulbright and we can all kind of help you get started with the process, but I tend to be the person that does the most with it. So happy to meet with you about that. So undergrads, Navigate. If you are a graduate student or an alum of the university, you can go to my Calendly link, which is calendly.com/hbretts. So you can make an appointment. Again, we do virtual, we do in person, we meet over the summer, either half an hour for kind of a shorter conversation, or as you get deeper into the process, you can do a competition deep dive to talk about Fulbright in more depth, or even do an essay review appointment where we get your materials in advance, we read over them, and we offer you comments, suggestions, feedback, and have a conversation about your essays. All right. So I think that's all I have for you. So what other questions, comments, points of clarification do you need? Any questions? All right, wonderful. Well, seems like I did at least an okay job at uh, giving y'all an overview of the Fulbright application. One last thing for you to do is to complete a candidate, whoop, that doesn't help. Complete your candidate profile. So if you have your phone handy, scan that QR code, and I'll also put the link in the chat. And that is basically what puts you into our National Fellowships database so that we know that you're interested in fellowships and we'll actually start to contact you so you don't have to remember to reach out to us. And it helps us have a place to keep our notes and keep track of everything. So that's really important to complete that, especially before your first meeting with us so that we have a little bit of information to help get the conversation started. There is my personal contact information there. Feel free to email me. And of course, you can follow us on social media for wonderful stories of what current fellowship recipients are doing. All right. Another question in the chat. Oh, can't create a candidate profile. Yes, for alums and graduate students, there's a different link. So I will put both of those in the chat. Yeah, the candidate profile is, for better or worse, tied to your USC account. So it does auto-populate some stuff, but if you're not a current USC student, it kind of breaks. So thank you for that. So, all right, I will put those links in the chat while I wait for any final questions. Oh, and one other thing, actually a couple other things. So first off, again, I mentioned that there is like there's more than just Fulbright. There are a bunch of other awards that help you to do similar things, either connected to certain countries like Germany or Belgium, Iceland, Scandinavia, India, or there are awards that are for certain types of things. But there are a bunch of other awards that help you to do similar things to Fulbright. So I always encourage people to apply to multiple if you have the capacity to. So that way, if you don't receive a Fulbright, maybe you can do the NowCap teaching in Spain, or maybe you'll have also applied to do a research for research funding from the American Scandinavian Foundation. Maybe that you get that one, but it's always good to have multiple options because it's always a better situation to have to say no to something than to not have the opportunity to say yes. Personal philosophy, hopefully of some helpfulness to you. So I'm grabbing the alumni forms. Yes, that was one thing. And then the other thing was that if you, I know we talked about like how we didn't have student voices at this panel, but, or this workshop, but I will say if you do want to talk to people who have applied for Fulbright, we have a coffee chat program with our fellowship ambassadors. So those are folks who have applied for and usually receive national fellowships. We don't have people who have like received Fulbright. Well, we have one person, I'll take that back. One person there who's already received and gone on her Fulbright. But there are a bunch of people who have applied to Fulbright or and who have also won other awards. But basically we have share screen again. We have a bunch of folks who are interested in connecting with you about fellowships in general, about your experience. So for example, Cecilia is applying for Fulbright this year. Alexis applied for Fulbright. Molly applied for Fulbright. Yeah, so some of these people have applied for Fulbright, but they've won other awards of an international nature. And so these are folks who are fellowship recipients and who you can apply to have coffee with. So you can request a coffee chat. We'll pay for you to get coffee. So if nothing else, you get free coffee. And so you can request a coffee chat and they'll take you out to coffee and answer all your questions about what it's like to actually apply for these awards. What are some of the highs and the lows of the process? Because Fulbright, one of the things is it does involve a lot of waiting. Like I said, the folks who applied last October, they received their semifinalist results at the end of January, and we're still waiting to hear finalist results, and we may be waiting till June. So, you know, it's a bit of a waiting game. Final results come out anytime between March and June. So depends on the country. So just be prepared to wait, but they can talk to you about kind of what that process is like, tips and tricks for getting your essays written, all that kind of good stuff. And plus free coffee. So wanted to point that out for you all. But I think that brings us just about to time. It's 7:10. I said that I would keep you till 7:15, but I'm happy to hang around for questions. But if there's nothing else for the good of the order, we can formally conclude our meeting. All right. Thank you all so much for coming. I really hope to see some of you in my office or virtually to get started on your Fulbright application.